Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
we'll get the show started. While everybody's getting seated, I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. I know it's an early hour, but I wanted to give the rest of the day for folks to be able to get to work and to have the rest of the day. Today we're going to try to keep it shorter than last year. I'm going to give some remarks for about 30, 35 minutes. Staff has given me 30 pages of notes, so we'll see how that works. And then we'll do questions and answers with me, the rest of the council, and our staff directors for the rest of staff. So if there's any questions anybody has, we'll do that. We're being filmed by RPV TV this morning, so smile nicely when the camera's on you. Once again, I'm Dave Bradley. I'm the mayor of Rancho Palos Verdes for right now, or at least until December. And I want to welcome you all this morning to Ladera Linda Community Center. This is a phenomenal space. Unfortunately, we don't have the $1 million view this morning of Catalina. Hopefully by the end, staff has assured me that it's going to clear and we're going to have a perfect view. Right, Dan? Okay. I was going to acknowledge everyone, but then I found out by looking around the room that I would have been sitting here for about 15 minutes going through the acknowledgement of everyone. We have civic leaders here from the city, we have former mayors, we have elected officials from around the South Bay. I do want to acknowledge our two sponsors that helped us with the breakfast this morning. Mark from EDCO, thank you very much for sponsoring, as well as Bill from Alshire & Winder, our city attorney, for sponsoring the continental breakfast this morning. So round of applause for them. And then there's one other person that I'd like to acknowledge this morning because of the amount of help and support that this individual has given to the city over the last 18 to 24 months. Truly the only person that has really stepped up to help the city of Rancho Palos Verdes through some of our difficult times, and that's Supervisor Janice Hahn. We'll talk a little bit more about what Supervisor Hahn has been able to do for us. With that, I'll start. The city of Rancho Palos Verdes is strong. I mean, we are doing well, but we do have our challenges. Probably first and foremost, as everyone knows, is the landslide and stabilization of Palos Verdes Drive South. Just a week and a half ago, we had a sinkhole open up at the bottom of the ski jump. Unfortunately, everybody in this room knows what the ski jump is when I say it. Outside of the South Bay, you say the ski jump and they go, "You have a ski jump?" It's like, well, yeah, we do. And then followed up, a lot of folks don't know, but 2.5 days later, the forced sewer main along PV Drive South broke in the middle of the night, so we had to do emergency repairs on that. Just to show that on the western portion of the landslide area on PV Drive South, it's still moving. We'll talk a little bit more about the numbers coming up, but it hasn't been fixed. So since peaking in July of 24, land movement has decreased significantly. On average, about a decrease of 65% in the Abalone Cove area, 81% in the Portuguese Bend area, and 65% in the areas outside the historic boundaries. In Klondike Canyon, one of the major successes, it has stopped 100%, which is amazing that we've been able to actually retard part of the landslide in the eastern section. Last year's peak, just to give some folks some numbers, at Seaview and the Beach Club, we were seeing movement of 3 to 4 inches a week. In the Portuguese Bend community, we were seeing 10 to 12 inches a week. So if you can imagine living in an area that was moving 1.5 inches a day, is pretty amazing. This year, Seaview and the Beach Club is seeing no measurable movement, and Portuguese Bend is down to 2 to 3 inches a week. Still a huge number, still way above historic norms, but well below what we had seen at the height. Our utility partners have been supportive in trying to get both power as well as gas reestablished to those areas. Seaview, we have electricity restored, gas restored to most of the homes. The remainder are in progress, with the exception of the homes that we had to yellow and red tag. Beach Club, we have had the electricity restored, and gas restoration is also in progress there. And the Portuguese Bend community, unfortunately, with the movement still there, we have not been able to have our utility partners re-energize either electricity or the gas lines. But as soon as that gets down to more of a historic movement, we hope that our partners will come in and reestablish the services there. In the last 18 months, we've installed 11 deep dewatering wells. Of those, 8 remain operational today. We had to decommission 2 due to lack of productivity, and 1 being scheduled for re-drilling. To date, we have removed 300 million gallons, or 900 acre-feet of water that we've extracted from the landslide, which is an incredible amount of water. You can imagine 900 acre-feet, 900 acres with a foot of water. That's how much water we've extracted. The winterization efforts that we put in place for the emergency a year ago, much of that remains in place, and we hope that infrastructure will continue to survive this year, next year, as we continue to maintain it. Though that is all temporary infrastructure for the winterization, all part of what we would like to do if we can get external funding to be able to put in long-term mitigation. On the legislative front, our Assembly member Al Marasushi has been sponsored AB 986, which is to amend the California Emergency Service Act to include landslides and land movement in the definition of emergencies. It's hard to believe that in the state of California, land movement is not considered an emergency. You go to Cal OES and say, we need help, and they say, well, it's not an emergency, it's not covered. It's like, what do you mean? So our Assembly member is sponsoring that bill. It has got through the appropriations, and we hope that it'll get to the governor's desk soon. One of the things that some of our residents also are fighting through now is the city is redoing some of our building ordinances, and that is to try to keep buildings safe for all of our residents. We have had what we called the moratorium. We have changed that, and we're trying to put in long-term building codes to allow safe construction within the landslide area and allow our folks to rebuild, repair their current structures and be able to take advantage of their property as much as possible. That's going through the city council system right now, and I believe we will have that on the agenda come Tuesday. So that was the landslide. That's all affecting the physical sustainability of the city. Unfortunately, what we have done on the last 18 months in support of the landslide and the emergency remediation has really drained the coffers of the city, our reserve funds. A lot of folks don't also understand, even though property tax is our #1 revenue source, of every dollar of property tax, the city gets 6 cents on the dollar. So a lot of folks within the city of Rancho Palos Verdes see, I have a huge property tax bill. What do you mean the city doesn't have enough money to fix everything? Well, unfortunately, we get 6 cents on the dollar. Just to go through where the rest of it goes, 6 cents goes to us. The school district gets 20 cents. LA Community College District gets 3 cents. Educational augmentation gets 22%, LA County gets 24 cents, and the library district gets 3 cents, and other districts account for the rest of the 5%. Just to show the city is in need of additional partnership to help fund our landslide remediation. What we have had in the past, and I want to thank Supervisor Hahn once again for not only helping us with direct grants to some of our residents to help in the conversion from natural gas to propane and other major things that each individual had to go through. Another $2.5 million went into the city to be able to help with the emergency winterization and the emergency drilling of the deep dewatering wells. So once again, thank you, Supervisors Hahn, for really being a partner and supporting the city through these crises. We'll talk about that. Yes, we do. So even though for 2026 we're showing a balanced budget, what it has done is a decline in our balance for our community capital infrastructure program, or CIP fund. So we've seen that fund decline by 91% in the last 24 months. And that is the fund that we use to do all of the major capital investments, roads, sewers, the rest of the major construction and projects within the city. So unfortunately, that is withering down. And if we don't get additional support from outside to help us with the landslide, that fund is going to continue to dwindle. Over the next 18 months, we're really looking on how we can close that gap. To the fact that the City Council is in the process of looking at additional revenue sources. We are looking at everything across the table. A lot of folks have heard about the toll road. I've got a lot of cards and letters on a toll road. We have had that question by a lot of folks, and we've always said, well, that probably is not going to pencil out. But we were asked that question so many times, we decided that staff really need to go do the homework and figure out what that would pencil out at. I don't think it'll ever make fiscal sense. In Palos Verdes on the peninsula, we're a very frugal group. I believe if we ever established a toll road on Palos Verdes Drive South, that would have the unintended consequence of just driving everybody to Palos Verdes Drive North. So once again, it would reduce the amount of traffic, reduce the amount of revenue, and once again, we would be in kind of a spiraling down. But we are looking at that. We're looking at other things. We're looking at increases to our transit occupancy tax, golf tax, and other ways to generate additional revenue in the city. Those will all be going to the voter in 2026. We are looking at the different types of revenue that we could generate to be able to close the budget gap and to be able to provide city services, maintain Palos Verdes Drive South the way that we have previously. Some of the other things that we've had done on the financial front is the buyout program through FEMA. So that is continuing. So that's $42 million that FEMA allocated to us. We hope that continues to be there. The BRIC grant that we had authorized was pulled back. We are working with the federal government and FEMA and Cal OES to see about other grants that would replace the BRIC grant. The $42 million buyout program that is helping buy out the residents that have had their homes red tagged and are no longer safe to live in. That's continuing through the process. Hopefully by late this year, early next year, we'll actually see some movement on actually going through the process. I mean, we're doing the process of getting the valuations and the quotes on that, and then we'll work with Cal OES and FEMA to get the money allocated to the residents. On the federal side, so Senator Feinstein allocated $2 million to us that we're still working with the federal government to get that. That was an earmark in the 24 appropriation. But that is something that's also on its way, unfortunately hasn't got to us yet. I do want to announce today that a week and a half ago at the County Sanitation Board meeting, the County Sanitation Board did authorize up to $4 million of direct aid to the city of Rancho Palos Verdes to help stabilize Palos Verdes Drive East and stabilize the forced sewer main that runs along the seaward side of Palos Verdes Drive south. So a great so everything helps. So on to something on a little bit more good news. This is a lemons out of lemonade. As everyone knows, Wayfarers Chapel unfortunately was closed. It was disassembled. It's in storage, and we're looking for a new site for Wayfarers Chapel. We have identified the Battery Barn site, which is the last piece of property owned by the federal government at the Civic Center site, as a perfect place to reconstitute a National Historic Site of Wayfarers Chapel. We're working with the Coast Guard, we're working with the federal government to see about getting that piece of property turned over to the city, getting that added to the National Defense Authorization Act as an amendment to be able to get that piece of property turned over and then be able to allocate that to Wayfarers Chapel, looking at how we would do that with a land swap with the heritage site and things like that. But that's on the horizon. Some of you have probably seen some of the artist renderings of what it would look like. Phenomenal concept of the Wayfarers Chapel sitting up on the bluff overlooking the Point Vicente Lighthouse there as part of the Civic Center project. That'll be incorporated into the Civic Center master plan as the city of Rancho Palos Verdes continues to develop the Civic Center. The Civic Center redevelopment project has taken a back seat because of the major issues that we've had with Portuguese Bend and the landslide. We do hope that we can reinvigorate that project in the future. One of the things that, as part of the Civic Center redevelopment, is the establishment of an enduring emergency operations center. That was actually one of the grant restrictions when the property was granted to us, is we were supposed to build an emergency operations center. That was always part of the grand plan for the Civic Center. Unfortunately now, we don't have the money to go build that. So we're working with the National Park Service and the federal government on getting a delay and when we have to have that done and working through the process. Let's see. Next, let's see, crime. On a lot of people's mind. Fortunately, the city of Rancho Palos Verdes is one of the safest cities in the state of California. I say that, but when I say that and then I talk to somebody that's actually had their home burglarized or they've had their car broken into, you know, that's very personal. So we work with our partners in the Sheriff's Department because no crime is acceptable crime. Excuse me. But trying to also get the word out on how folks can help the Sheriff's Department help themselves. We've also recently established a new public safety division within the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. And this is to help support the Sheriff's Department, help take some of the burden off the Sheriff's Department for things that we may not need a sworn officer to respond to, be able to take general reports, do community outreach, and then allow our sheriff's deputies to actually be doing crime reduction, helping with preventing speeding, which we've recently focused on, reducing speeding and speed enforcement along the switchbacks in Palos Verdes Drive East. For those of you that live on the east side, you know that on the weekends, Palos Verdes Drive East sometimes looks like Laguna Seca with various car clubs and various motorcycle clubs really taking advantage of the city. So in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department, we have increased enforcement along Palos Verdes Drive East to try to reduce the amount of speeding along Housing, another issue that we continue to deal with. The housing laws that have been coming out of Sacramento continue to affect all of the Southern California, the beach cities, with taking away local control. We do have an approved housing element, which was one of the major things that we had to get done. This would prevent what was called the builder's remedy, where people by right could come in and not have to obey any of the city's development standards. We're continuing to work through what that means. We're continuing to try to push back on that for what we would consider sane development within the city. The idea that high-density housing would be built in a very high fire zone area that has limited egress and ingress in an emergency is troubling. We work with our partners with LA County Fire on being able to have the safest egress and emergency management or emergency action plans. But if we had ultra high density housing forced into the city in some of our narrow streets where it's difficult to get emergency service vehicles down there and have our residents be able to exit that area, just not the best way to do sane development. So we're really working, trying to work with the state to figure out the right way to implement housing. Some things coming up for our Rec and Parks event. Well, first of all, I do want to acknowledge Councilman Steve Peristam. So at the recent 4th of July party at Civic Center, Steve Peristam was the 4th of July pie eating contest winner. So John Cruikshank, former Mayor John Cruikshank, won that for 4 years in a row. I tried to beat him 4 years in a row and came up short every year. Finally, in the 5th year, I was victorious. This year, I left town so I wouldn't have to defend my belt because winning it once is enough. But Steve, congratulations on winning the pie eating contest. It's a great event that we have at our 4th of July celebration. Hopefully, well, I think a lot of you were here at the 4th of July celebration. We had the drone show, we had the pie eating contest. Unfortunately, Councilman Lewis didn't get the memo that in a pie eating contest you can't use your hands. But it was all in good fun. So congratulations, Steve. Uh-huh. Some of the things that are coming up with Rec and Parks, we're having the Pedro Pet Pal cat dog adoptions on the 3rd. We're having a National Night Out celebration on the 5th. Our Movies in the Park continues on August 9th. The PVIC Native Plant Garden Volunteer event is on the 17th. Little Fish Tales by the Sea on August 21st. Our last concert in the park on August 23rd. And then the City Hall Anniversary Open House is on September 4th. So for those of you that are available, please come out for those. A couple mentions about our sister city. We, in the last year, the City Council was able to go visit our sister city, Sakura City in central Japan. That sprang out of a partnership that our 2 middle schools had formed 25 years ago, that we then codified a sister city relationship with the Sakura City Council, and we had the opportunity to go this year. They'd been here 3 times, and they'd have been actually to the Marillas Intermediate School several more times. So the partnership that we have with our friends across the Pacific continues to be strong. Our 5th anniversary for that partnership actually comes up on Monday, and we'll be having a special meeting on Monday for that partnership ahead of the City Council meeting on Tuesday. Actually, now that I think of that, Terry probably is looking at me that I actually didn't open this meeting appropriately, and I'm actually okay. So we'll open the meeting. Since this is a quorum of the City Council, we need to open this meeting, and I see our city clerk over there texting. She was probably texting me, and I just haven't looked at it. Other things going around the city, excuse me, Western Avenue redevelopment. For those of you that get onto the east side, we're continuing with trying to help develop Western Avenue into what would be a more friendly, inviting economic corridor. It's difficult because of three groups that actually control Western Avenue. It's the only time that I know of that you have the City of Rancho Palos Verdes, the City of Los Angeles, as well as Caltrans, all involved in trying to figure out how to run a street. So try to synchronize signals along a street with three municipal agencies. Yeah. But we continue to try to do that. If you have looked at what I call the O'Reilly Center, there's several new restaurants in there. It looks so much better. It looks like it's been brought into the 21st century. And we've had grand openings. I believe Councilman Seo was there for the grand opening of Urbane Cafe. I haven't had a chance to be there yet, but it looks like it's doing a great job or great business. Please stop by there as well. The Habit is going in there. But that's continuing. A U.S. Bank is going into the old Murray Callender's restaurant there. I wish it had stayed a restaurant, but at least it's being redeveloped. The Murray Callender's was looking a little tired, and then the Results Sports and Fitness is also have gone into what I call the O'Reilly Center next to the Urbane Cafe. Just to finish it up, so for those out in the community that are interested in getting involved in the city, the Palos Verdes, or the Rancho Palos Verdes Leadership Academy is taking applications now through August 20th, which is a academy where we bring in folks from around the community, and we basically go through city operations. And this is intended to help folks that are interested in getting on a committee, a commission, potentially even running for city council at some point. I do often say that getting on a committee or commission is a gateway drug to getting onto the city council. It's how I got on that slippery slope. I started on the Finance Advisory Committee, then went to get reappointed to the Finance Advisory Committee and was told, oh no, you got appointed to the Planning Commission. And then after that, I started following John Cruikshank's footsteps on the Planning Commission, becoming chair of the Planning Commission, and then getting elected to City Council. So for those of you that are interested in civic engagement, I highly encourage you to take advantage of the Rancho Palos Verdes Leadership Academy. So with that, I'm going to open this meeting of the City Council for August 1st, 2025. And Madam City Clerk, can you call the roll? Here. Thank you very much. We're going to dispense with the flag Pledge of Allegiance. We are going to do that at the end before we all leave. But with that, I do want to open it up for questions from around the community. To help make this as expedient as possible, Dan Troutner is going to be in the back by the center pole with a microphone. If anybody has a question, please go back there as opposed to having Dan run around to every table. That gets really hard. So if anybody has any questions, please, and that would be for myself, for the rest of the council, or for any of our city staff.
Hello, I'm Jason Buck. I was just curious, what would the toll be if there was going to be a toll? Have you figured that out?
So there is no number. The issue that we would have is we would have to have an outside vendor administer it. So figuring out what the administrative costs were on that, and then what the revenue target would be for the city is all TBD. I don't think it will ever pencil out because the administration costs are going to always swamp any potential revenue, and it would just be a major impact to the community that will never be worth the potential revenue, which I don't even think is there.
Mayor,
Uh-oh.
just quick
Wait,
observation
you
and question.
can't.
No, very quickly. Western Avenue, all this money dumped on the bike lanes, and just a statement, you know, I've driven that 1,000 times since the bike lanes. I haven't seen one bike there. They've taken the lanes that make traffic flow by Weymouth. Somebody's got to do something about that. That was a pet peeve of 3 council members here when we were doing that. Thing was running at least decently. The lights weren't synchronized, but they really did a terrible job with that road. So anyway,
Jerry,
not so much a question, but just a
Jerry,
statement.
I understand. So that was a unilateral decision by Caltrans to put in bike lanes along Western, narrow the street widths to be able to accommodate those bike lanes that we, the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, fought back on. I believe that it was a goal of Caltrans to put in X amount of bike lanes, and they were going to force X amount of bike lanes in wherever they could, regardless if it makes sense. I, like you, have seen maybe one bike rider on that, and it has, once again, retarded flow along Western. Unfortunately, they put it in because it is a Caltrans administered road, and were able to do it with little to no input from the city. In fact, we gave them negative comments, and they said, thank you very much for your interest, go away.
I think you said Klondike Canyon was 100% remediated.
So right now, Klondike Canyon, with the deep dewatering wells, the actions that KCLAD or the Klondike Canyon Landslide Abatement District have taken, the movement on the east side here in Seaview and down at the Beach Club has stabilized, and we're seeing little to no movement month over month.
So my question is, what is the chance that all the other areas can be successfully
So we
100%
believe,
remediated,
so
and how long would
we
that
and
take?
our city geologists do believe that if we took additional remediation action, we can significantly retard the rest of the landslide. The city has developed a roughly $150 million plan to go through and put in a series of additional deep dewatering wells to get into the first and second slip plane. Hydro augers to go in horizontally to be able to fan out and take additional water out. A plan to put in long-term remediation in the canyons and lower drainage swales to be able to pool the water and then pump the water out and prevent it from getting into the water table, recharging the aquifer and recharging the slip planes, both the deep slip plane that's roughly 350 feet below grade and the medium or the lower slip plane, which is about 150 feet below. But that's about a $150 million project all in for lining canyons, lining the lower swales, as well as putting in a series of dewatering wells and then maintaining those. One of the problems that we have is when you put in a well and trying to retard land movement, the land has a tendency to move after you put the well in. So we have to, on a somewhat regular basis, re-drill those wells as the wells have sheared off and put in more infrastructure. Unfortunately, right now, one of the other major costs that the city is continuing to do is the infrastructure to support the deep dewatering wells is all on generator power. So we continue to rent generators, we continue to bring in diesel and propane to run those generators, because in some of the areas that are still moving, we do not have any SoCal Edison power. That continues to be one of the major expenses. So we are looking to try to retard that movement as much as possible. Hopefully SoCal Edison will come in and re-energize the Portuguese Bend area and the Abalone Cove area and allow us to get direct power to those pumps, which will significantly help the future O&M. Hello, Susan. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a comment to make. I guess first I should say, it's me. I'm Susan Brooks. I may sound a little different, but I'm still the same rabble-rouser I always was.
We would
And,
expect nothing less.
Yeah, I had cancer, and I'm still battling it. And a city. Two main reasons. Did the police come when I called them? And are my streets paved? And do they look good? And outside of that, he would say everything else is fluff, right? But I remember that we did have a pavement management program. And in that program, it was once every 7 and then graduated to 8 years that we would really pave the roads. We used to have the best roads on the whole Palos Verdes Peninsula. And now we have the worst roads. I know the landslide has taken a tremendous toll. However, with our CIP budget, I do believe it is time, if it's been since 2012, since Palos Verdes Drive East has been repaved in entirety, that's a problem. People look at it and they say, what happened to the roads here? And you know, outside of any personal issues, I see Aura back there, I do want to thank the city for everything they've done. But I would like the other council members to think of this too, because it's so important that the presentation we make, the beautiful medians. I worked on the beautification program. It's all so lovely, but a little by little, if we can just do little by little, bring the other parts of PV Drive South up to speed by Terranea. They're not moving, you know. So that's just my comment for you.
So, Susan, I agree with you 100%. And unfortunately, over the last 18 months, we've been repaving PV Drive South sometimes every 48 to 72 hours. Unfortunately, that has drained the CIP budget that we would have been doing for repaving PV Drive East, for repaving other portions of PV Drive South. And it's a zero-sum game. There is only so to keep Palos Verdes Drive South open, which has been a major commitment by the City Council and the city, we have continued to focus resources on stabilization and repaving. I think a lot of folks will remember a year and a half ago, you would drive Palos Verdes Drive South and you would then come back along it and it would have changed. I mean, there were cracks that would open up in real time. In a 2-hour trip, there would be a new crack, and that's one of the reasons why the City Council enacted a prohibition of two-wheeled vehicles along PV Drive South, not to be punitive, but because when a 2 to 3 inch crack would open up in 8 hours, we just could not ensure safety for a two-wheeled vehicle. Now, I will say a little anecdote here is under the heading of you never think of everything. We had put in that ordinance on a Tuesday night that no two-wheeled vehicles along PV Drive South in the landslide area to be able to protect the public. I was with City Manager Moranian, I believe at the time Mayor Cruikshank, and we were giving a tour of the landslide. And I was standing in Gateway Park in the landslide area, and I was looking down towards the ski jump. And I had one of these moments, because what did I see coming towards me? A guy riding a powered unicycle. Did we prohibit unicycles? No, only two-wheeled vehicles. So he was technically in the right, but you just can't win on some things. But back to you, Susan. I absolutely agree, and I think the city, our Department of Public Works, wishes that we had the funds and the staff to be able to go after and to continue to do repaving in the rest of the city. It's something that is on our list of things to do. Unfortunately, and a lot of that, it has been deferred because it's been pushed below the line because of our. We're trying to come up with the right balance and balance all of that.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow. Susan, I wish you the best of health. Thank you so much for your dedication and service to the city, and thank you for your input. I wish you the best of health. But I'm going to tag along with that. Being a retired law enforcement officer, I understand the shortage of officers and what's happening with the Sheriff's Department. But back to the PV Drive South, you had mentioned having law enforcement with traffic enforcement over there on PV Drive East. But I'm telling you, because I drive the South Road, those signs don't mean anything. I also saw one of those LED signals that said violators will be, cited. But the motorcycles are out there, the bicyclists are out there every day on the weekends, some of them in groups that they are riding on the road. I had one female bicyclist decide to cross the road on the other side and almost hit my car and then give me one of her little signals on her hand. So one day, and being a retired officer, you know, an emergency preparedness committee that we are on, preventative is very important. And I'm not saying it's being ignored. I understand the shortages, but it's going to take one accident on that road that something's going to happen. And even though you have signs saying you're not allowed, they're going to end up suing for their injuries or anything else. So if you can, please try to make the citations. I know that you have to have a municipal code for law enforcement to enforce it, so I don't know if you do have that. I know I had mentioned it to Ira, to some of the supervisors, but if you can do that, that would be so much appreciative. You mentioned it, they are taking advantage of us, and it's really a danger to some of the vehicles on our road, especially with the potholes. I have a little car, and I have to avoid, you know, I'm zigzagging like this on the road, and I don't want to be stopped for drunk driving because I'm not. But I'd appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
So let me respond to that. Yes, we have a code to be able to be enforced. It is, yes. What you said might happen has already happened. So yes, we're being sued. You know, that is one of those you can't win, is when somebody drives around multiple signs that says don't do something, then they get their tire caught in a hole or a crack, and then they fall, and they injure themselves, and then they sue you for saying, we didn't know. But so, yes. We are trying to do enforcement. Captain Guerrero and her team at the Lomita Sheriff Station only have so many officers, so once again, it is a hierarchy of need. We try to enforce everything as much as possible. So whether they're doing crime suppression, investing in burglary, investing a assault, or being able to write traffic enforcement ticket. It's all a hierarchy. We really asked the Sheriff's Department recently to focus on Palos Verdes Drive East because the speeds were getting way excessive, and we had a couple fatalities along there, and we wanted to try to protect the public as much as possible. But yes, we do try to enforce it, and this is hard to say, is sometimes those things don't rise to the level that we can really go attack it. If we had more deputies, unfortunately the Sheriff's Okay. Unfortunately, the entire Sheriff's Department is undermanned and still trying to come up to full strength, which is a whole different discussion. The Lomita Sheriff Station does do pretty well in competing for manpower, but I believe Captain Guerrero, if she had her way, she would have more deputies on staff at the Lomita Sheriff Station. Unfortunately, she's arm wrestling with the other station captains that are able to compete like before. So, absolutely, understood. Any other questions?
So you're looking for funds, fundraising. We have a new beachhead in Rancho Palos Verdes.
We're not going to put housing there.
I would hope not, but it could be an incredible naming opportunity for someone that wants to fund a short term, of course, it's not sustaining, but might be, to get their name on a map, might be worth some change for some high rollers.
That's it. That is one that I've never heard. So now that's an interesting idea. I will say that for funding, we are continuing to work with Cal OES as well as FEMA and the federal government to look at additional grant opportunities to help the city find funds to be able to attack our PV Drive South stabilization program, and that's about the roughly $150 million program to stabilize everything, to have additional funds to help our residents with a buyout program for the folks that have had their houses ripped in two and in some cases three pieces because of land movement, and then also to reset Palos Verdes Drive South, re-straighten it out again, so that folks don't know what the ski jump is, what the S-curve is, what the little ski jump is, but then put that into basically what the street was re-straightened out in, what year was that, Ara? That we, 87, when we reset the street. For those of you that have been around a while, that was when there were three houses that were on the landward side, that when we reset PV Drive South ended up being on the seaward side, and they continued their migration into the Pacific. I don't think that any houses are going to move from one side to the other this time, but we would straighten it out and make it level and make it much more friendly to traffic. So, if there's no more questions, we will, since we're having kind of the reverse meeting, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance last. I'm going to ask former Mayor John Cruikshank to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So all of you, thank you very much for coming. I think the rest of the council and city staff will be around for a little while after this. If you have any other questions that you didn't want to ask here or in public, please come up to us. Thank you for coming out. There are little cacti for you as well as some postcards. The postcards were some of the watercolors were painted by Karina Vanderlip, so very interesting. Have a wonderful morning. Thank you for coming.